top. Once again, please do not post in the chat for a minute or two until I give you the all clear so I can put my posts up at the top. It's kind of like a race. I can't get it yet. Give me another minute. It didn't register up there on YouTube yet, but it will. Still not. There it goes. Okay. Check for sound and picture. Yeah, how's our sound? There it goes. Okay. Check for sound and picture. Yeah, how's our sound? Almost done, guys. Just sit tight for another minute before you post in the chat. Almost there, just another minute. Almost done, guys. Just sit tight for another minute before you post in the chat. Almost there, just another minute. Okay, guys, feel free to post in the chat if you like. I've got my posts up. Now we got to see if people are coming in. That's the next challenge. Let's see. Guys, feel free to post in the chat if you like. Nobody's coming in but me. That's unusual. Oh, there we go. I've got my posts up. We got sound, we got picture. We're looking good. Let me adjust the screen slightly. Now it's a little better. If I put the screen the other way, it moves around. If I do it this way, I'm all the way at the bottom. What to do? I don't know if I can do horizontal. Let me see. That's what I used to do. Let's see if it works. Nope. It doesn't let me do horizontal. So this is what we got. Sorry. Okay, today is the 12th of April. It's a Friday. It's 10 in the morning. Our weather is rather seasonal. No rain anticipated today. High of 77, a low of 57. Tomorrow about the same, and the day after, and the day after, and then Tuesday next week we go into the 80s. Wednesday the 90s, and then we start dropping back into the 70s. So we got a little shot of heat coming for some reason. I don't like the way this screen is going. Let me see if I should. What can I do to fix this? Does that help? Yeah, that helped. Okay. Being a Bible-believing site, I'm going to do some praise now. If you're a true believer and you want to join in, it's up to you. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so in the current events arena, what we're seeing is Iran backing down. Iran sort of told the UN in a roundabout way that if they would condemn the attack on their consulate in Damascus by Israel, that they would not be counterattacking Israel. And it's almost like they're saying, condemn Israel and we won't attack. They're scared. And they also are showing their own people in Iran videos of an attack on Ashdod, Israel, and other places in Israel that never happened. They're making it up. They're doing, Hollywood phony attacks. Now, the Iranian social media is extremely controlled. I never saw anything like it. When you go to Iranian social media, you hear about songs, soccer games, um, trivial events like a truck overturned on this bridge, or you don't hear anything. I mean, their news is like no news, you know. So it looks like there's not going to be an attack. And now they're saying, well, we reserve to do it in the future. Well, guys, Iran lies about everything, as does uh, the Houthis, the Hamas, the PIJ, the Hezbollah, the militias in Syria. They're always lying. What Iran's game is it goes around making videos and parades of these new missiles they have that can fly all the way out into space, go around Pluto and then come back and hit, an area, 1 foot by 1 foot. I mean, they don't really do this. I'm exaggerating, but they are liars. They don't have these weapons. They don't have them. Russia doesn't have them. The Ukrainians, with the help of weapons from America, it's been consistently for many months been able to attack Russia in Moscow, St. Petersburg, other places close to Ukraine, and their troops in Ukraine. And Russia doesn't have the means to stop them. And they shoot Russian missiles down. They sink Russian ships. They don't have these weapons. They lie. Why? What is the purpose of the lie? They scare the civilian populations of the other countries. Why? If they didn't scare the civilian populations of the other countries, these countries would be sitting out there demonstrating and saying, let's blow Iran up, Let's destroy Hezbollah. We essentially destroyed, devastated, tromped on, and demolished Gaza. Okay? And they're a proxy of Iran. Why didn't they have Iran weapons? They were smuggling all sorts of stuff in through Egypt. The most likely conclusion is the stuff doesn't exist. And then comes Lebanon, Hezbollah, doing the same thing. And why didn't Iran attack Israel? They don't have them. They don't have them. Now, I told you that, I think it was April 10th, 2 aircraft carriers from America on the East Coast left their base on the same day, plus a few other warships. Now, this is, in my book, rather unusual and very coincidental with America threatening Iran. Now, if Iran counterattacked Israel, what would happen? I can guarantee you that Israel probably has at least 20 or 30 target packages ready to just put in the jets' computers, the airplanes' computers, and counterattack the counterattack. And this time it would be on Iranian soil, and it would be openly broadcast. It wouldn't be subtle, like all of a sudden the pipeline for natural gas gets blown up, or a refinery gets blown up, or this or that. A missile warehouse, or a missile factory, or a drone factory gets blown up. We do that. But this time it would be open and blatant, and Iran would lose face with their own people, and the revolutionary movement in Iran would rise. And more people would start screaming to their governments, like that song, Ba Ba Bomb, Bomb Bomb Iran, from the Bob Iran song. I think it was the Beach Boys. They would start, hey, what are we putting up with these idiots for? Blow them off the map. That's why Iran doesn't want to attack us directly, because then we'll retaliate directly. However, Netanyahu knows that you got to cut the head off the snake. The snake is Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and the Iran-backed militias in Iraq and Syria. And when you start to punish Iran directly, then Iran will stop. Maybe the Americans have gotten, the light bulb went off and they realize that this is the reality. Maybe Netanyahu got through to them. Netanyahu is trying his hardest to get America to fight Iran with him. He's perfectly willing to throw Israel into the mix. But if he does it himself, he's got a lot of problems with the UN that could pop up. More genocide claims, because how do you really attack Iran without hurting people, And, if America joins in, there's no UN concern. Because America has permanent veto power. They're not going to let the UN take action against themselves or actions they were into. Now, America would be interested in attacking Iran because they don't want to do a ground invasion with the Houthis. It's going to be probably 100,000 plus troops. And it's a big, long campaign. And they may resort to human shields. We don't know. And we know Iran is assisting them with weapons, with having spy ships, warships from Iran in the Red Sea, isolating targets, giving the coordinates to the Houthis to fire missiles at them. And it is believed by some, including me, that when the Houthis launch drones, the Iranian warship takes command of the drones and guides them to the target as best they can. The Houthis' land-based radar has been bombed out. So America got to be thinking, and this is the breakdown that the Pentagon would come up with, or any other military think tank around the world. We can do airstrikes on Iran territory. And we may need to, strike them 40 or 50 times, but we could strike them, 10, 15 times a day. And they're going to throw the towel in. They're going to try to throw the towel in secretly, like approaching America through, I don't know, a third party, Qatar, maybe, I don't know. And say, okay, we'll quit if you quit. They won't do it publicly. And you got to keep it quiet. And America will say, what do we care about keeping it quiet? Fine. Okay? Then they tell Lebanon to back off. They tell the Houthis to cut it out. And Hamas, I don't think you could talk to them anymore. There's nothing to say to them. They're just going to have to go down for the count. And that's fine. And America is likely going to try this because it's more expeditious. It's more economical and politically correct and so forth to just go bomb military targets in Iran. They're not going to blow their oil up or their navy up so quick. We're getting implied threats from Iranian top brass about closing the Straits of Hormuz. which would stop traffic in the Persian Gulf, which would stop movement of oil and other things. They didn't say they were going to do it. They said they could do it, but they haven't done it for the sake of the other Arab countries, which is nonsense. They haven't done it because there's 2 aircraft carriers chugging over here, likely from the East Coast. If they were headed to Europe, not the Mediterranean, they could quickly and easily be diverted. I don't see a reason why 2 aircraft carrier groups would leave the same day from the East Coast of America if they were not coming to the Middle East in response to Iran. Now, I checked the, what is it called, warship cam or something like that, and there's been a lot of naval ships pulling into their ports in America, San Diego and Norfolk, Virginia mostly, in the last 3 or 4 days. A lot. Now, why are they all coming in? Actually, about the last 3 days. Actually, you could say the 10th and the 11th, and the 9th, 10th, and 11th of April. There's been quite a bunch. Now, we could say this is normal, and it could be normal, but it doesn't sound right with what's going on with Iran and 2 aircraft carriers, Nimitz class, leaving on the same day. It doesn't sound normal to me. It sounds anything but normal. So why would they be coming into port all of a sudden, so many of them? Well, they would be coming in to get upgrades. Well, get re-equipped. What do you mean? Food, medical, uniforms, that kind of thing. Stuff for the commissary. Well, the whole bit, They would be coming in to maybe pick up new and different weapons, to get refueled. Well, if they're aircraft carriers, they need to be refueled, because while the aircraft carrier is nuclear powered, the jets are not, so they need a bunch of fuel for them. But the others could be there for, minor repairs to get them out. Maybe they're changing the crew. The crew's been out and they're going to be deployed for many months to the Middle East, so they swap the crew out. I don't know. They don't talk. But if they're in a hurry, they could change the crew, minor repair the ship, load it up with food. You got to remember, nuclear powered or not, the sailors, if they don't eat, they're going to eventually die, okay? So they need food. And they may have swapped out the different missiles and rockets that they have. They may have put upgrades in, gave them upgraded missiles and rockets. This, I don't know what they did, but it sounds like they're on a war footing. Now, they can do this in, 3 to 5 days typically. Unless the ships need real repair, then it's going to take weeks and months. But assuming these ships just they got to have minor repair. But they need supplies. They need new paint to keep the hull in good shape. They need all sorts of stuff, and they got to brief the crew that's going to be departing as to what's going on, and, all of this stuff. So it's curious at this point. They've also deployed a reasonably large amount of ships very recently, days ago, from San Diego, which means they're headed to the Pacific Theater. They could be headed to Pearl Harbor as well. Pearl Harbor is midway between, the China-Japan area and the United States West Coast. And it's a very large naval base, Air Force too. And they could have them there, which means the distance to go to the China-Taiwan theater is, about half what it is from San Diego. so they could get there rather quickly. The stupidity of this whole thing is if China decides to invade Taiwan, by the time the Americans could really offer any type of a serious response, China would have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of troops in Taiwan on the land. And getting them out of Taiwan would be a nightmare because they would have lots of air support. China's 110 miles away. Okay, that's a few minutes by jet. A few minutes. And they have aircraft carriers, and they have submarines, and destroyers, and missile cruisers, and attack helicopters. And they've converted their ferry boats into troop transports. And the trip is nothing. It's 110 miles. So the boat's going to be there in 4 hours or so, 4.5 hours. And they've got tons of these boats. So the boat can bring them, drop them off, turn around, go back, gas up, turn around, bring another load, and they can go around the clock by rotating the crews. So in a matter of, 2 or 3 days, they could have thousands and thousands and thousands of soldiers in Taiwan with armor, with artillery, with missile pods, with tanks, with everything, and air support and naval support. In other words, if they're in trouble fighting the Taiwanese military, they call the Navy ships, the Chinese Navy ships, they give them the coordinates and they launch missiles at the Taiwan soldiers. So, even from Pearl Harbor, to move a massive flotilla over there would be hard. I mean, the United States would want to have like 6 aircraft carriers over there to fight China. And they'd probably want to have about 50 or 60 warships, destroyers, missile cruisers, and probably a dozen submarines. It would be a massive flotilla. Of course, China has a massive flotilla. Are the American ships and weapons better than China? Yeah, but China's good enough to kill them. And China cares little about life. They, you don't cry, humanitarian aid and genocide regarding Gaza, which they do, but they don't really get behind it too much. They'll bring new definitions to the meaning of genocide when they get going. So by the time the Americans can mobilize to do anything about it, they could easily have 100,000 soldiers on the ground with armor, air support, naval support. It'd be horrifically hard to get them out of there. Now, at the same time, to confuse America, they would have North Korea attack South Korea. They would probably lay in on the Philippines, and Japan would be in the fight against China as well. So it would be a real mess. Now, if that happens and the United States starts trying to deploy lots of assets to save Taiwan and South Korea, well, then Russia has its cue, and the golden moment is arisen, and then Belarus and Russia will hit Poland and probably Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Transnistria, and Moldova, and other places, Georgia. and start conquering land. And they got to deal with NATO, and Russia knows that. So now the United States is the kingpin protector of the Pacific region and the European theater. So what do they do if they're embedded in the Middle East? Well, it makes life hard for them because they still have to protect Alaska, Pearl Harbor, and the 48 states, plus the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And they got to worry about Cuba and the enemy taking over Caribbean islands where they can launch missiles from, and all of this stuff. Mexico breaking the wall down, which is in Bible prophecy. I don't know who else could be breaking the walls of America but Mexico. There's no walls on the Pacific or the Atlantic or Canada, so there's no walls on Florida, Mississippi. It's all Mexico. I don't think Mississippi has any border with Mexico. No, they don't. So, and they got to keep naval assets in the Gulf of Mexico, up and down the Pacific, and up and down the Atlantic. So this whole jockeying is what they want to see happen to America. Now, Iran is in on this plot, as is North Korea. But the top tier players are China and Russia. The second tier is North Korea and Iran. And the third tier is, the Muslim militia terrorist groups, Cuba, Venezuela, Belarus, things like that. Okay, the interesting thing about Putin is he is loyal to his allies. He does fulfill. If he says he'll help, he'll help. If he can. So that's not the case with Biden, So Biden may be using Israel to attack Iran. Biden may have told Netanyahu, you want your redemption with America, you want your weapons, this is what I want you to do, start a fight with Iran. Because it's more expeditious for me to bomb Iran for a few days in a row and get them to back off in the Middle East. Give them a good taste of their own medicine and they'll stop. And it saves me having to go into the crazy Houthis on the ground and having a big campaign for, 3 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks as the election gets closer. And what do I do if the campaign drags out into November for the election? I'm going to be finished. I won't win. So I need a quick victory. So the way to do that is just bomb the daylights out of Iran till they throw the towel in. This is what it looks like to me. So, of course, Netanyahu volunteers Israel because he hates Iran. Personally, Netanyahu does. And Iran's move now, in terms of Middle East logic, is this. Iran is showing fear. Now, sadly, Israel operates not completely like the Arab states, but much like them. Israel sees the fear here in Iran. Yet they see Iranian proxies continuing to attack us, Lebanon, Gaza, and Yemen. So they're probably going to try a couple of more targeted assassinations on Iran officials anywhere they can and see if they could get Iran to back things off. Right now, Hamas is not interested in anything resembling a ceasefire. They want a permanent withdrawal of Israel They want a tremendous amount of the people that evacuated down to the south of Gaza to be able to return to the north, which would include Gaza soldiers in civilian garb. And he doesn't want to, they don't want to do the hostages first. And that's because they probably don't have that many live hostages anymore. And instead, when the time comes, they'll try to barter with the dead bodies of the hostages. So America's telling Israel they don't have many live hostages. Israel's telling them that, and I've been telling you that for weeks and weeks. They don't have. Yet Netanyahu has to beat this into the ground because there's so many people in Israel that want those hostages back. They've got, I'm quite sure, some live hostages, but it might be 15, it might be 10, it might be 30. It's nowhere near the 109 or 120, whatever they have unaccounted for. It's nowhere near there. Not even close. So it still looks like the Rafah attack is going on. It's going to take place. I don't know what day. Okay? It looks like Iran is going to do either a very minor retaliation against Israel, hoping Israel doesn't retaliate, but they will. And it's going to go. I don't see any way around it. And God's enemies, which is Iran, are going to be destroyed. Iran's going to get really busted up in this one, badly, very badly. They're not going to like what's going to happen to them. Now, America may not do anything until they bring more aircraft carriers over here. So they'll probably have, 225 or so jets with the 3 aircraft carriers, which is a very significant fleet of, squadron of aircraft. And they'll probably keep the one in the Red Sea there. And they'll probably put one by the Sea of Oman right outside the Persian Gulf, or maybe go in the Persian Gulf, and they'll have one by Lebanon in the Mediterranean, which can easily hit the Russian naval base and the Russian air base in Latakia, Syria. America has an axe to grind with Iran because they've had their militia forces in Syria and Iraq attacking their bases and embassies and consulates for many months, killing people, hurting people. So they're really, getting upset. And everybody's afraid the Houthis are going to cut the internet cables more than they already did. And that would cause the SWIFT system to go down, which is international money transfers, which would really cripple the banking system seriously around the world. So I think that America is seeing Iran's reaction, and Netanyahu's whispering in their ear, I told you they don't have anything like they say they do, and they're scared, and we just keep pushing on them. We gotta bear down, and we bear down hard, and they'll throw the towel in and get their proxies to stop with these attacks, which is what Biden would like to see. And then he's going to shift modes into the only way Israel's going to have peace is with a 2-state solution. And he's going to put troops in Gaza directly with his temporary peer, and they're going to do a forced ceasefire. I'm reasonably sure we'll see this. It might be an international bunch of soldiers, and then looking at Bible prophecy, he'll probably put troops in the West Bank to try to force us to stop the fighting there and pull out and give the land to them, and this sort of moronic stuff. Okay, so that's kind of the current events thing. So I don't think we're going to see any substantial attacks from Iran. I think they're afraid. I have one prayer request I don't want to forget. It's for TH, Tom Hotel. TH, Tom Hotel, TH. Healing specifically for the back. Healing in general and for the back. Healing in general and for the back for TH, Tom Hotel. Okay. So let me see if I'm getting any questions in the chat. People come in the chat and say, oh, he's not live, he's faking it. I'm not faking it, but I can't answer questions in the chat every 30 seconds. What do you mean? They all come in here and say I'm faking the live stream. See, these are people that work in the flesh. We know who their God is, the God of the dead. And they come in here and they mock me about my attire or something like that, or my beard, or, that's because they're in the flesh. Everything about the flesh is important to them. They worry so much about what other people think of them, and that's how the people that serve the unclean spirits are. That's why you see this behavior. Okay, so let's go to Psalm 4:3. Book of Psalms, chapter 4, verse 3. Now, pay attention because this applies to so many of you and you'll like it. But know that Jehovah hath set apart him that is godly for himself. The Lord will hear when I call unto him. Stand in awe and sin not. Commune with your own heart upon your bed and be still. The sacrifice of righteousness. Offer the sacrifice of righteousness and put your trust in Jehovah. There be many that say, who will show us any good? Jehovah, lift thou up the light of thy countenance upon us. That's the Kohanim prayer. Thou hast put gladness in my heart more than in the time that their corn, more than in the time that their corn and their wine increased. I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety. I'll read it again, verse 3. But know that Jehovah hath set apart him that is godly for himself. Jehovah will hear when I call unto him. So what he's talking about is you guys are lonely. You're not in fellowship with other like-minded believers. You know too much to go to the churches. You know you're in sin if you go there. And you're set apart, which means you're going to what? Number one, spend more time with Jehovah and Yeshua HaMashiach. And you're going to spend more time in the Word, more time thinking about the things of God in the Word, prophecy or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It takes you closer to God and you spend more time with God. So that's why you're set apart. That's why you don't have fellowship right now. That's going to rapidly change. Okay? So it's really a good thing that you were set apart. Because you can't hang around and, go to the church barbecues and beach day and, what other nonsense they do, singing Christmas trees. You can't partake in that stuff because it's sinful. Okay? Now, is God going to do a work with the people in the churches? I'm going to take a break and we'll take a look at that. Because we were at one time all in the churches and we came out. So we have to be careful not to get too arrogant about that. See if I could do anything with this thing. Maybe, is that going to help or hurt? Let me think. Let's see if that helps. No, it made it worse. Hold on. Let's see if that helps. Yeah. Okay. So what do we think is going to happen with the church? Well, we have a little bit of scripture about it, but it's pretty much doom and gloom. These are the last days of the church. Okay, this is it. And they serve another God, but unknowingly. Now, when we were in the church, we were deceived. But the ones that came out were probably never really serving another God with any knowledge of such. There might still be some in there today that don't understand. They don't know spiritual warfare. They don't know the true gospel. They don't really know Bible. They don't really know that variants, having different doctrinal statements, and seditions, denominations, divisions, found in Galatians 5:19-21, is a sin that keeps you out of the kingdom of God. And they don't know that. Even though they read it in their scriptures, they don't pay attention to it. Now, what's going to happen to them is they're going to have to make a decision pretty soon. When the trouble in America starts, which could be as soon as today, these sleeper agents, many of which we're told come from the likes of Muslim terrorist groups, will start attacking churches. And we're seeing attacks in churches in other countries in the world. And it's going to increase in America. There's been some attacks there. They're all scared. They got security guards at their meetings. They got people packing guns in church. You know, they're scared. I mean, and they got reason to be scared. It's already started, and it's going to keep getting worse. A lot worse. So the people in the church are not going to really start thinking about what's going on yet in America and in Europe, because the attacks aren't that major. But when they start getting to the level of bombings, rapings, murder, you know, all kinds of things, they're going to start getting concerned. And they might not even want to attend the churches anymore. The churches may resort to something like with COVID, where they were, you know, meeting it while they were doing virtual church. It may get that bad. It's not going to get good. It's going to get bad. And I don't know how bad, but bad. I spilled some of my juice here. I'm trying to clean it up. So things are not good for the church now. And it's going to get a lot worse for them beyond what they think is going to happen. And they don't know what to do about it. The pastors are ill equipped. They'll try witchcraft and sorcery and stuff like that. That's all they know what to do. So the people are going to have to make a stand and stop going there. But they're not going to stop going there unless they get some scriptural support for this behavior. Of not going there. And you guys are the only ones that, well, there's a lot of people that know the church isn't the church, but you guys can show them the scriptures. And it's a long journey to understand it. It's not something you get in a minute or two. You know, like, hey, the Bible says, you know, if you commit murder, you know, you ain't going to the kingdom of heaven. Well, people could grasp that. They could grasp being a drunk, adultery. They could, you know, grasp a lot of things, but the church, they have a lot of trouble letting go of because they think it's real. But probably quite a few will come out, and they'll need help with the scriptures. See, if you're a real true believer, you're in Israel. And Israel will come out in the next Exodus out of America and the other countries too. So they will come out too. They may come out and not really understand everything. They may just know they're being let out, but it would sure be helpful for them to get the scriptures straight so they can understand better what happened and why it happened. And this is reasonably hard for them to do, and they need somebody to show it to them. So that's a role that some of you may be playing. But you'll probably be teaching them on the way to the second Exodus, well, the next Exodus, I should say. We had one Exodus from Egypt, we had another Exodus out of Babylon. We had exoduses in the Balfour Declaration, 1917, 1948, Israel, in between those two periods. So we should say the next great Exodus. Okay? And that's coming real soon. Days, weeks, a few months, it's not years. Things are getting harder and harder for people in the United States. Guy was saying today the average new car payment now in America is $738. And people are saying that in recent months, car insurance is like doubled. The price of cars is coming down. I guess people aren't able to afford new cars. Some people that have, very strong credit, like they have a rating of, 800 or 765 or whatever, can get financing at very low interest rates, but the car companies got to keep chugging cars and putting them out on the street. And they need people to buy them. They need to get a payment stream. So they could float a bond. S-bots, Satan bots that own big companies can go to Wall Street directly, go to the investment bankers and issue, let's say Ford Motor Credit says they need, $2 billion or they need 800 million. They float a bond where people give them money, and let's just say it's a 5-year bond, and then Ford tells them they're going to give them interest of 5.6%. I'm just making a number up, for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, they turn the bond in and they get their capital back, but they get the interest payments in the meantime. So what Ford needs to do when they issue these bonds is to make sure they have a payment stream coming in from people making car payments, because the bond money is used to finance the cars. So people go to Ford Motor Credit, and Ford's going to charge them a higher interest rate than a bank, probably 2 points or 3 points or 4 points, depending on the car and the person, maybe 5 points. And they have to pay higher interest rates on their bonds than the banks do. Banks have insurance, Ford doesn't. Banks have bank insurance through the Fed, Ford doesn't have that. So if the bank's paying 4%, Ford probably has to pay 5.5%. So if they get the people to pay 8.5%, they got 3%. That's good profit for Ford. So they got to push those cars out. So they start taking people with no down payment financing. They give them a rebate, knock $3,000 off the price of the car. They tell them they can buy the car with nothing down. They don't have to make a payment for 2 months, and things like this, right? So they start taking chances to get these cars out there. And by doing this, they ruin the resale value of the cars. So they bury the people. I'll explain. If the people lease the car, which is usually a higher payment, maybe 25 or 30% higher payment, it's higher. At the end of the 3 years, whatever the car is worth is irrelevant. They just give the car and the keys back and walk away. Unless there's damages to the car's in terrible condition. But they're usually pretty reasonable about this. Otherwise, nobody would lease a car. So if the upholstery is ripped and shredded and the headliner's hanging down and all, they're going to tell you got to pay certain damages and, they'll enforce it. But if the car comes back with something resembling normal wear and tear, they don't care. They just take the car back. And now they got a problem because they don't want to have that car sit in inventory. They got to sell it. So what they usually do is have the dealer go through the car, fix the problems, whatever the problems are, to get everything in the car working, the door locks, the windows, the air conditioning, the radio, the GPS, everything. And they change the oil, and they get the car up to speed, and then they give the person a 1-year warranty on the car, which the dealer, handles. And of course, Ford pays the dealer if he has to do warranty work on the car. And they sell the car as a used car. Now the problem comes, the car companies shoot themselves in the foot because they start wanting to push the new cars. So they start giving reduced prices, rebates, easy financing. So people are not so prone to buy the used car. They want to buy the new car now. Even though the new car costs more, you still got usually a 3-year warranty and stuff like that, which they don't do on used cars. They give you a year. So the used cars start to fall apart in value, and then people, start walking away from their cars. They just give the car back, and they have a deficit balance, and they just go bankrupt and stuff. If you're making payments on a car you paid $60,000 for, and you've been making the payments for 2 years, you might owe, I don't know, $18,000-$20,000 on the car, and the car's worth $8,000. You see, they get into difficulties like this. They hurt their buyers. So they all want to cater to the people that have perfect credit scores, because these people that have perfect credit scores usually have money, income, businesses, stuff like that. To get a perfect credit score, they want to see you own real estate with equity, stuff like that. So you're not positioned to go bankrupt on them, and you're positioned to painstakingly make payments and finish obligations financially just to keep your credit rating good. But there's not that many of those people to go around now, and there's not that many of those people to go around that are going to want to buy cars, because they see the cars as just a depreciating junky asset. They got to have a car, they buy a car, but they don't. It's not like it was in the 80s, or it was really like in the 60s. It was amazing. When they had the Vietnam War going on, they had car salesmen in Vietnam. I'm not kidding you. This is true. I'm that old, and I knew many people from the neighborhood and other people that were in Vietnam. They had Chrysler, Ford, Chevy, Plymouth, Dodge, would have salesmen in Vietnam. And they weren't out in the battlefield. We were in the big bases in the big cities. And they would meet with the soldiers that were ready to come home. So when the soldiers were coming home, in 2 months or a month, Um, the big thing in the 60s was to have a hot rod car. And they made cars that were nowhere near as fast as they are today, but they were very fast. Okay? Fast. But not like today. They're much faster. But they were plenty fast. And this was the big thing. They had these cars in movies, TV shows, songs about the cars, stuff like that. So the soldiers had money saved up, a lot of them, because what are they going to spend their pay on in Vietnam? The ones that weren't taking drugs and stuff, there wasn't much to spend. So they saved up enough money for a down payment for a car or cash. If they were going to get discharged and they didn't have any uh, job prospect, well, then they had to get a cash payment, or maybe they financed them with a big down payment, or they had their parents co-sign property. I don't know how they did it. And they would buy, Dodge Chargers with Hemi engines, GTOs, Corvettes, or Pontiac Bonneville convertibles with the 421 engine, and they had all this stuff. And these kids would buy the cars, and then they were buying them from the manufacturer. So the manufacturer would assign the sale to the dealership that they had in this kid's city or closest to his city. So when he got home, and usually the cars took a month or 6 weeks to get manufactured and delivered. So they didn't, they didn't sit there and show the kid what was in stock. They sat there with the order book and they built an order for the car. So I want a Dodge Charger with the 440 engine with 3 2-barrel carburetors, and I want green with tan interiors. I want this wheel. I want a vinyl roof. I want this radio. I want, and that was, see, people in America used to just be worried about vanity and pleasure. They weren't thinking that women weren't thinking they're going to walk out in the street and it's going to be common for men to run up and punch them in the face. They weren't thinking that they're going to get attacked, they're going to get bombed, they didn't have that. They didn't have this crazy swarm of immigration. Okay? Immigration was quite controlled and watched. Okay? So they what did they concern themselves with? Serving God? No, there was people that did at the time, but they were usually in the churches. They concerned themselves with, I want to get this new TV. The TVs kept getting bigger. Okay? By the time you got into the 60s, you had 25-inch TVs. The screens were curved, but they were in color and they were affordable. People were buying them. They were such a prestigious item, they put them in a wood box, like mahogany, walnut, stain. They had speakers in the wood box that were behind the cloth, so the TV would blast loud. They began to have the concept of 2 speakers, like stereo. And they were not yet really having cable and stuff like that. So when the early 70s came, they started having cable. And the cable was initially, you just got perfect reception on, maybe 10 or 15 channels, or even 7 or 8. That was the initial cable. It was cheap. They used to sell for like $3 a month. Then they started with cable channels, and they started getting you more and more channels, and it just evolved into all kinds of different things. So it was an interesting day. So the car companies are about to get themselves painted into a corner, and that's going to be a problem. And what they will do when they're painted into the corner, and they're going there very quickly, is they'll start, laying off people, and at the same time slinging the automobiles out as quick as they got it. Their inventory, they'll do anything they can to sell it. They go bankrupt if Ford has 193,000 cars or 50,000 cars sitting in lots collecting dust. That means Ford's going bankrupt. So you got that coming down on people's heads. The car thing is going to get ugly. The gas prices are going to go up, and that's going to kill the car companies. It's going to kill them. As soon as the wars in the Middle East take off, you'll see gas double. Gold is going up very nicely. It's in the 2300s, seems to be holding there. And as soon as we see some sort of blow up somewhere, it's a real easy jump from 2350 to 2500. When gold breaks this next psychological barrier of 2500, it gets up to, 2550, 2580. It's going to be a very short run to get over 3000. This is a big 2500 is a massive resistance point. And when it gets over that, and it's not going to take much, I don't know how high gold may go before it blows up, but it may go up into $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 or something like that, because it's going to run away. When it starts going, it's going to be like a runaway. And silver would easily triple or quadruple. Silver's 27 now. So gold goes up $100, silver goes up too. But when the frenzy starts, let me explain what will happen. You're not going to be able to go to your local pawn shop or your coin dealer and say, I want to buy 5 gold 1 ounce rounds. He says, I don't have them. If he does have them, and let's say gold's at 2,500 an ounce, he's going to say, I want 2,700. And you're going to say, but that's not the price. He says, well, go find it. You're not going to find gold. That's what's going to happen. Because the people that have gold, there'll occasionally be somebody that needs money. And there'll occasionally be somebody that's scared that the market's going to bottom out, and then they'll get rid of their gold and take their profits and call it a day. But that's only going to be maybe at most 25% of the people. The rest of them are going to hang on. They'll just turn to silver, and they'll just run with the silver. Now, some people are going to go to palladium and platinum, but I wouldn't go near that. I would only stay with what the Bible uses for money, which is silver and gold. I wouldn't go to these other metals. I wouldn't go to copper, bronze, brass, palladium, platinum, or any of those. And they're expensive, and I wouldn't go near them. Right now, you could trade them and do okay, but I would just stay with gold and silver. The big opportunity is in silver, because you'll probably be able to, triple or quadruple or more your money that you put in silver, where it's going to take, if you were going to triple your money in gold at 2,300, let's say 2,500, it would have to be, selling at $7,500 an ounce. And if gold ever hit, $7,500 an ounce, you better believe silver would probably be 150 at least. So you'd have your money, 5 or 6-fold with silver. Now, the difficulty, of course, is carrying silver around with you. But the difficulty with gold is when the governments are failing and the paper money falls apart, then what do you buy with gold? You got a 1 ounce gold round versus worth thousands of dollars. And what do? I mean, you want to go buy groceries, you'd have to take a hacksaw and cut a little piece off, and the smarter thing to do would be to buy the smallest denomination gold coins you can get, or gold bars that are marked correctly as small ones, because it's easier to barter with those, and the weight of carrying them around is the same. 4 1/4 ounce gold coins weighs as much as 1 1 ounce gold coin. So the silver looks like the real sleeper of investments. Not that the gold is a bad one, but all the paper money is going to become crap in the world. It's crap now, but people can buy stuff with it. As long as they can buy stuff with it, they don't believe it's garbage, but it is. Once the wars kick up, it's going to be the banks are going to close, the stock markets, the commodities, the options, the futures, the bonds, it's all going to shut. People's money's going to just be frozen there. They're never going to see it. The virtual currency is the same thing. They're never going to see it. Without a banking system, how do you use your virtual currency? It falls apart. Plus, when the internet's out, it falls apart. So it's doomed for failure. See, if you were in normal days, let's say you were in America in 1900, okay, people were running around with silver and gold coins, and they did have paper money, and banks actually issued their own paper money at one point. I think by 1900 they stopped doing that, but in the 1800s they used to. So you'd have federal government notes. Local banks actually issued money. You can find pictures of it on YouTube. Google rather. And people had gold and silver coinage in America. So if you took, a gold coin was called a double eagle. It was a $20 coin. Back then, $20, you'd go to the grocery store and you'd fill your house up with food for, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I mean, it went a long way. If you went to a restaurant and ordered a hamburger and French fries and a sarsaparilla or something like that, it was probably 45 cents or 35 cents or something like that, When I was a kid, we used to be able to go to a luncheonette and have a meal for less than $1. I remember in the early 1970s, I was in San Francisco, and I lived in this round building across the street from a church on a street called Gough Street, and it was a beautiful apartment on the 16th floor. It had pie-shaped rooms with a balcony, and I didn't see the good view. I didn't have the San Francisco Bay. I was viewing more towards the south, and I did have the bay there. It was more of an industrial view of the bay, but it was still something pretty nice. And I used to walk from there to the Fillmore district, and there was a Chinese restaurant I liked over there. And I was not a believer then. I didn't, eat any. I ate anything, and they had a really big bowl of what they called war wonton soup, which was wonton soup with wontons and shrimp and other kinds of fish and chicken and beef and all kinds of stuff, and it was huge. And I just used to order that, 90 cents. And I was a big guy in shape, and I had trouble finishing it. It was so big. 90 cents. And then if I was really starved, I'd get some fried rice with some meat in it, chicken, beef, or pork, and eat that with it. It's really cheap, And we used to be able to get coffee, and I can't remember the chain in the store. It was for 10 cents, you get a regular coffee in the 70s. And now people go to Starbucks and they spend $4, $5, $6. You know, it used to be a dime. And when we got into the mid 70s, people used to say McDonald's is the only place you can go where you can get a coffee for a Deemer. A Deemer was slang for a dime back then. And you'd be able to get a coffee for 10 cents. I never liked McDonald's coffee. It tasted okay. But the problem was they heated it up to the point where it was actually dangerous. There were self-defense people that would recommend to women to go to McDonald's and buy a large cup of coffee when they had to walk someplace by themselves to the bus or a car, and they were worried about getting robbed or mugged or raped or something. Buy their coffee and hold it in your hand without the lid on it. If somebody bothers you, just throw it in their face. It was that hot. It was dangerously hot. When I did get McDonald's coffee, I used to tell them to put ice in it, which they're more than happy to do from the soda thing. And they had some lawsuits about this, and I think they stopped it. The reason they did it is people could go take the coffee and carry it back to their office, which might be 2, 3, 4 blocks away. And when they got to their office for lunch and they ate at their desk, the coffee'd still be warm. Or they'd go put it in their car and drive around and eat. And, you know, and the coffee would stay a long time. But they took it overboard, man. They really overdid it. So let me look at the chat again, because people say I'm faking the live stream. And see if I got any questions to answer. And I do answer questions as long as they're, you know, resembling what I'm talking about, you know. Okay, get rid of these people. People that come in here and insult me are not here to learn. They're here to disrupt and cause problems, that's all. Do you leave with your wife? If your wife's a believer, yeah. If your wife's not a believer, she's probably not going to want to leave. She's not going to believe it's going to happen until it's over. So that's how they are. The people are not yet ready to give up on the church, but it's just around the corner. You'll see it. You'll see it happen. Okay. So Jeremiah 30, when most people read the birth pangs, let me give you a crash version of it. I would just use the most common, Matthew 24. And Yeshua went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Yeshua said unto them, see you not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Now, he was talking about they departed from the temple. Then it says, these things verily, okay. Jesus said unto them, see you not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Now the temple had a wall around it, and I would think for sure that Yeshua was including the wall of the temple would be thrown down also, which they broke the wall down to get into the temple. Okay, so why wouldn't he, you know? So the wall being left today was from the Roman fort that was very close to the temple. It was called Fort Antonia or Fort Antonius. And that wall stayed because the Romans didn't knock their own wall down, so it still stayed there. And they use that, and they call it the Temple Mound area, which it's not. The Temple Mound area was 6, 8, 900 feet away where the pool of Silwan is. There's no mountain there anymore. Some army, many centuries ago dismantled it with their soldiers. So the Temple Mound's not the Temple Mound. It's the site of the Roman fort. That's where the Dome of the Rock is and the Almas Mosque. It's on the site of the Roman fort. So they call it the Temple Mound, and they call the wall on the Temple Mound to be from the temple, and they call it Hakotel, or the Wailing Wall, and they pray there and all this stuff. And that enables them to say that Yeshua was a false prophet because it never happened. The wall was still here. That's how they do that. It's based on lies. Who's the father of lies? Satan. All right, verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? Now, wait a minute, let's see this. The sign. Now, the word for sign is 4592 Strong's number. A sign, a mark, a token by which something is known. Okay, let's see how Strong's puts it into English. Did I just bypass Strong's? I did. Where is it? An indication. Strong says it's an indication. So let's say, what shall be the indication of thy coming and of the end of the world? Well, the word for world is completely incorrectly translated. That's the courtesy of the churches to confuse you into false prophecy. The word is ion, and it does not mean world at all, ever. It means age, A-G-E, age. What's the end of the age? Yeshua said there's this present age and the age to come with eternal life. When do you see eternal life given in Mass? In Zechariah 12:10. Okay, now, you got to read Zechariah 12:10 with John 6, verse 40. So he's telling him here the indication of the coming of Yeshua. What is the indication of the coming of Yeshua? You got that? So how do we know when you're going to be coming? What happens before? Where's something like this found? Well, in the book of Joel, chapter 2, it talks about the great day of the Lord, which is Gog and Magog, Zechariah 14, and Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11. And what it talks about there is before the coming of the great day of the Lord, the sun will go dark, the moon will turn to blood. Now, a lot of church schmucks making merchandise out of God's people run around writing books and telling the people that have had 60 or 80 blood moons. So what they've managed to confuse the people with, which is not saying much for the people that bought into this really, is these amber-colored moons called harvest moons. And they're telling them those are blood moons. Now, I've seen these things, and the moon appears very close. The luminescence is quite strong. But how in the world can you believe that this yellow amber-colored moon is a blood moon? It beats me, but they sell books about this. And the blood moon is a one-off event that only happens once. It hasn't happened yet. That precedes the great day of the Lord, and then on the great day of the Lord, which the great day of the Lord is a day, right? Okay. On the great day of the Lord, you will see the sun go dark, the moon go dark and the stars fall. They don't give their light. Okay? So the blood moon with the sun going dark is a sign of the coming of the great day of the Lord. The sign of the coming of Yeshua is the appearing of the Son of Man in the clouds. And we'll see that here in a moment. I'm going to take a quick break for a minute and we'll get more into it. And as he sat upon the ground, the Mount of Olives. Now, the Mount of Olives is a third of a mile east of the Temple Mount, and you could see the Temple Mount from there. Actually, the Roman soldier on the Mount of Olives was able to see into the temple from the east because he saw the curtain on the holiest of holies get ripped down. Upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately. Now, the other thing you need to know is a lot of Jews get buried on the Mount of Olives. Most of the graves are above ground in a concrete crypt type thing. And the Talmudic rabbis erroneously and evilly teach them that when the resurrection happens, if you're not in Jerusalem, you have to crawl back, or you're not in Israel, maybe, I don't know. I think it's Jerusalem. You have to crawl back here under the earth. So they sell them grave sites on the Mount of Olives for large amounts of money. See the sickness of these people? They're the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And that's quite sad, you see. That's my joke. Okay. The disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the age? The sign of his coming and the end of the age is the same thing. When he appears in the clouds in Zechariah 12, well, we should read Zechariah 12. We'll read in verse 10. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications. That means they're now believers. Oh, how the heck else are you going to interpret that? You can't. It's the only interpretation. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Hadramon in the valley of Megiddo. Now, there was no mourning. It keeps going. It actually tells us in verse 12, and the land shall mourn every family apart, the family of the house of David and their wives apart, and the family of the house of Nathan apart. Okay. So, what's going on here? They weren't mourning 2,000 years ago, roughly, when they killed Yeshua. They see him. They see Yeshua, but just before they see Yeshua, the Lord pours his Spirit out on them. Now they're believers. These are Israelites, Jews, if you will, right? Judah and Jerusalem, that's who's here at that time. 10 tribes are not here yet. Now, what you need to read this with, and I'm oversimplifying it, I've done much more in-depth teachings on this, is John 6:40. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. Well, they have everlasting life, and they get raised up on the last day. But they get the everlasting life right then and there when they see him. And that is fulfilled in Zechariah 12, which is something the church is never going to teach you. The other thing the church is never going to teach you in Zechariah 12 is verse 6. In that day will I make the judges, they say governors, it's judges, who are prophets normally. Who are the two witnesses of prophets? So it's the two witnesses. The judges of Judah, that's the land that we have now, and it's the same at this verse, when this comes to pass. Make the judges of Judah as an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in the sheaf, and they shall devour, it's better translated burn up, all the people round about on the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem shall remain still inhabited in her own place, even in Jerusalem. So who do you know that has fire coming out of their mouth? Duh! This is buried under by the church. This are the two witnesses. He even says it twice to make you get the point that there's two of them. Like an earth of fire among the wood, and then it goes, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. It's the two witnesses. Who do you know could go around burning up people in the right hand and the left hand if it's not them? Do you see how they cover stuff up? And they're all no good. Listen, there are no non-believers, there are no real believers running the churches that don't know what they're talking about and are confused. They don't have that. The people running the churches are the false believers, and that's always the case. And there's a money flow, and one of their predominant fixations in life is on money and vanity. They're all about what people think about them and influencing other people. They're nuts, Okay, Matthew 24 again. So he's saying the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world. Now it's the same sign. When he appears, they have eternal life in mass. And that's the end of the age. And now you're in the age to come, the very beginning of it. And that's beginning the second 70 in Daniel 9:24. Because that doesn't say 70 weeks, it says 70 in Hebrew. And the first 70, let me see if I could show you that in Hebrew effectively. Can I? I'll try it. I don't know. I think I need, let's see if I can do it. I gotta switch over. Hold on. I don't know if I can put it on the screen. I'll take a look. Now I gotta go here. And I gotta do, I think, this. I don't know if it's gonna work. It's trying to find it. Let's see. I'll give it a few seconds, and if it doesn't get it, I'll just drop it. No, I have to get it set up. It's not set up for that. Okay, so let's go back. It says 70. Every Hebrew manuscript says it. The first 70 was Babylonian captivity. The second 70 is going to begin when they see the sign of the Son of Man. That's the beginning of the next age, the end of the age, and it's over when Yeshua returns. That's the end of their 70 years. And it's years. It's not weeks. It's not sabbaticals. It's not Yovels. It's Jubilees, or Shemitah years, or sabbatical years. And it's regular years. And God's year is 360 days. Pope Gregory's Gregorian year is 365. When these prophecies were given, great Pope Gregory wasn't even born, so it couldn't be that year. Okay. So then we go back to Matthew 24. In verse 4, and Yeshua answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ. Now that doesn't mean then, this is not saying they're going to come and say, I am Yeshua HaMashiach. It says they're going to come and say Yeshua is the Messiah, and then they're going to deceive you with their garbage, their bad teachings, and shall deceive many. That's the story of the church, really. And you shall hear of wars, rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. The end of the what? The end of the age. So the wars happen before the end of the age. The end of the age is shut down when Yeshua appears in the clouds, seated on the right hand of power, like the lightning from the east and west. That's all through Matthew 24. For nation shall rise against nation. Now, that's one country fighting another. Easy. And kingdom against kingdom. Well, that word kingdom is basilia. It means a ruler. So what's an example of this? Texas fighting against Biden. The governor Abbott against Joe Biden, the president, over the border. That's a good example of it, but it hasn't gotten violent yet. Can get violent. Okay, so it's saying basilia against basilia. Now the word for against, whoops, lost it. The Strong's number 1909. And how does Strong's put it into English? Against is good. Towards is good. So it's basically the ruler against the ruler. And there shall be famines. There's not a tremendous amount of famines in the world right now. And pestilences, plagues, and earthquakes in diverse places. And Luke 21 says great earthquakes in diverse places. So I've noticed an uptick in the earthquakes, in the power of the earthquakes in the last few weeks, but they're still not massive. All these are the beginning of sorrows, which is the birth pangs. Okay? And then it goes on and says, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted. I believe this is referencing directly to the disciples, the apostles, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. You're seeing that, of course, to some extent now. And many false prophets shall rise, they're all over the place, and shall deceive many. And because lawlessness shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Well, we see that now. But it could get worse. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all heathens, and then shall the end come. And that would be the end of the age. So has this gospel yet been preached in all the world? Not really, and maybe he's talking about this happening later on, before the end of the world or something, so I don't know. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, now he's talking about Gog and Magog, which is going to be 60-something years down the road, was spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them read Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11 if you want this amplified. You'll understand it much easier. Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Now this, he's probably talking about, could be talking about Gog and Magog, but he could also be talking about 70 AD, and, let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto him that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray you that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath. So why would the church, obviously this is projected into the future, after the Yeshua would be resurrected from the dead. And it says, pray that your flight not be in the winter, which means the law would not be dead at that time. Yet the church not only teaches you the law is dead, they changed the Sabbath to Sunday. The Sabbath starts approximately sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, but it's actually the mixing of the day and the night when the shadows are long. It's not the sundown. But moving along, I've covered that many times. It's called the Arab. For then it shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then, if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not, for there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, do not go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Okay, the coming, the word is perusa, it's 3952, and Strong's puts it into English with a choice of words that goes physical aspect, coming, or the presence. But this could be referencing the actual second coming down to earth, and it could also be the coming of his presence appearing in the clouds. So, for wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. This is from Matthew 13, the tares and the wheat. These are the tares. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven. Well, this is the Gog and Magog. And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And, you know, the key to really interpreting this is understanding Zechariah 12:10, where they look upon the one whom they have pierced, combining with John 6:40. That's the everlasting life. Then you really start to see what it's really trying to say. Sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. See, now we read about the tribes of the earth mourning in Zechariah 12, didn't we? Now, when Yeshua returns in Revelation 19 with New Jerusalem, and the beast and the false prophet are thrown in the lake of fire alive, and Satan goes to the pit, we don't read about any mourning at that time. Nothing. It's a rejoicing, superb. There's no mourning, but the mourning's in Zechariah 12. So then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. So the sign of the Son of Man appears in heaven, the clouds. And then shall all the tribes of the earth, it doesn't say tribes of the earth, it's Mishpocha, the tribes of Haaretz, it's the land of Israel, mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Now here the word coming, Strong's interprets this a little bit differently. It's a different word. This could also, according to Strong's, mean appear. So you could say, Son of Man, appear in the clouds of heaven. It's a different word, see? with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Well, this could be the four winds, could be the end of the world, because the whole universe has been burned up already, or it could mean something else. Now, learn a parable of the fig tree. All right, so that's what we read here. Now, let's read Jeremiah 30, where we get a lot of different insights into the birth pangs that are pretty valuable. The word that came, verse 1, that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Thus speaketh Jehovah Elohim of Israel, saying, Write thee all the words that I have spoken unto thee in a book. For lo, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel. Now, in part, that's already happened. And Judah, but it hasn't happened, Israel and Judah, because only a portion of Judah is here. Probably not even half of Judah. I'm sure not even half, because there's about just as many in America alone. So there's more of Judah not in Israel than Israel. But still, there's more than 6.5 million in Israel, so that's nothing to sneeze about. And I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, saith Jehovah. I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. Well, that's pretty much, we don't have all the land to give to our fathers yet, but we have a lot of it. Some of it, piece of it anyway, you know. And these are the words that Jehovah spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. For thus saith Jehovah, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask you now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Now, travail means giving birth. That's what the word means. Like what? The water broke, the cervix is dilated, oh, the baby's crowning, here comes the baby, I got him, cut the umbilical cord. That's travail, okay? Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. This is depicting Zechariah 12, okay? And it doesn't come with some schmuck talking peace and safety, making covenants like the church teaches. It comes with great fear, because a massive siege, a surrounding, an encirclement, is made of Judah and Jerusalem. That's what Zechariah 12 is about. And God did it, and God punishes them. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It happens on a day. These things happen on a day. When the Lord says day of vengeance, the word for day is yom. It means day. People, he's going to show through judgment and other means, but heavily judgment, how great he is for the sake of the world that gets through this. They need to know how great he is. Because he's laid low for 2,000 years, according to the punishment on Israel from Hosea 6, 1 and 2. It says for 2 days. Well, the punishment wasn't for 48 hours. It was for, like Peter said, 1,000 years is like a day unto the Lord. So that's what is going on. Okay. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. This is the only place Jacob's trouble is mentioned. but he shall be saved out of it. And when you read about Jacob, you got to remember, Jacob was good in God's eyes, and so there is none like it. Yeah, that's the only time they're going to see the sign of the Son of Man and be changed. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Now, the word for saved is 3467 in Hebrew. And the word is Yasha, Yud Shen Ayin. Yasha is the root of Yeshua. So saved out of it is salvation out of it. In other words, they now have eternal life, because what does Yeshua save you from but the second death? Now I'm in verse 8. For it shall come. Now remember, Jacob's trouble is great, but he's saved out of it. In Zechariah 12, they're saved out of it. In Gog and Magog, half of Jerusalem goes into captivity, the women get raped, the houses are looted, bloodshed. I don't read anybody getting killed in Zechariah 12. And, you could read these events in, for instance, Malachi 4, verse 1. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn like an oven. A day burns like an oven. And all the proud, yea, all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Jehovah of armies, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son, S-U-N, in Hebrew it's Shemesh, of righteousness, is obviously Yeshua, arise with healing in his extremities, and you shall go forth and grow up. It really says you shall go forth and frolic about like the calf of the stall. So the old people are now jumping around like a baby calf jumping, right? And that's the eternal life. And you shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet. In the day that I shall do this, saith Jehovah of hosts. Remember you the law of Moses. Oh, that's the same law the church says is done away with, by the way. My servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel with the statutes and the judgments. Behold, I will send you Eliah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Now, what happens to these people after they look upon Yeshua? Well, we go into Zechariah 12 again, and we go to verse 6. In that day will I make the governors... Oh, that's the earth of fire. Hold on, I gotta find the right verse. It's verse 8. In that day shall Jehovah defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them, that's the old people that are tottering on their feet, they can't walk, and go up and down steps with difficulty, bent over, things like that. He that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David. Well, David killed Goliath. He killed the bear, he killed the lion, and that's how the feeble are going to be, the old feeble people. And the house of David shall be as Elohim, as God, as the angel of the Lord before them. The angel of the Lord before them is the glory of God of Israel that went with Moses and Aaron in the wilderness with the children of Israel. His name's Michael. He killed 150,000 in a day. So you don't see some changes here that indicate eternal life? I do. It's hard to not get that. Go back into Jeremiah 30. Where was I? 9, 10. Okay, so Jacob's trouble, he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith Jehovah of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. There's no more being pushed around by Biden, the UN, and so forth. But they shall serve Jehovah Elohim, and David, their Hamelech, their royal. That's the anointed prince in the next temple. It's in Ezekiel 45, amongst other places, and he's from the line of David, of course, because David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne. It's not David literally. The anointed prince gets killed in Daniel 9:26. I'll find it. And after 62 weeks, they got all the timing screwed up. Shall Messiah, it's not saying Messiah, it's saying Mashiach, which means anointed. It's used over 100 times in the Bible to not reference Yeshua. It means anointed. Shall the anointed be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city. It doesn't really say destroy, it's shachet, it's to corrupt or defile the city. The temple doesn't get destroyed. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of war desolations are determined. Okay, so when it says Messiah be cut off, it's Mashiach, the anointed be cut off, and that's the anointed prince we read about in Ezekiel 45. I'll go find you a passage with it in there so you can, it's depicting the next temple. We read in Ezekiel 45:17, and it shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings and drink offerings in the feasts and in the new moons and in the Sabbaths, in all solemnities of the house of Israel. He shall prepare the sin offering and the meat offering and the burnt offering and the peace offerings to make reconciliation for the house of Israel. Now this is from the line of David, and he doesn't get called the king because Yeshua is the king of Israel. He precedes Yeshua, and he gets killed. Thus saith, so it can't be David because David died, and it's elected unto man to die only once. Okay, so now we go back to Jeremiah 30, verse 9, I think. But they shall serve the Lord their God and David their king, their royal is what it could mean also, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Yaakov, saith Jehovah, neither be dismayed, O Israel. For lo, I will save thee from afar. That's your next Exodus, save you from afar. And thy seed from the land of their captivity, and Yaakov shall return, the next Exodus, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. Well, they looked upon Yeshua. For I am with thee, saith Jehovah, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations, whither I have scattered thee. Okay, so he says here he's going to make an end of all the nations that he scattered the Israelites into over time. A full end of them. They're going to be destroyed. And this is in there with the birth pangs, with Jacob's trouble, which is Zechariah 12. And you should be expecting to see this anytime soon. Yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. For thus saith Jehovah, thy bruise is incurable, thy wound is grievous. There is none to plead thy cause, that thou mayest be bound up. Thou hast no healing medicines. All thy lovers have forgotten thee. Well, that's pretty much the way it is now. They seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, and with the chastisement of a cruel one. For the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased. Why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable. For the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased. Because thy sins were increased, I have done these things unto thee. Speaking of Israel, therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured. Now, what does the word devour mean? 398 Strong's number. Eat, devour, burn up, feed. Strong's puts it, consume, devour. Okay, all those that devour thee shall be devoured. And all thine adversaries. Now, what's an adversary? 6862. It's Tsar. An adversary. And all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. Now, does that sound like Iran is in here somewhere? Those that devour thee shall be devoured, while they have their proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, devouring us. They're going to go into captivity because it says that the nations that he scattered the Israelites into, which is over 100, are going to be destroyed. So they're going to leave their nation. Many of them are going to come to Israel and be slaves here just to live here. Some may be like servants too. This is not referencing the believers that are of non-Israelite heritage. No, they are Israel. I'm talking about heathen. They shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil. All that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. Well, Iran definitely preys upon us. And it looks like America is about to kick butt on Iran with the help of Israel. For I will restore health unto thee, that's your eternal life, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith Jehovah, because they called thee an outcast, saying, This is Zion, or Zion in English, whom no man looketh after. Thus saith Jehovah, Behold, I will bring again the captivity of Yaakov's tents, and have mercy on his dwelling places. In Zechariah 1, I believe it says, I am returned to Jerusalem with mercies. And in 2nd Maccabees chapter 2, when Jeremiah sealed the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant, the altar of incense, in the cave in Jerusalem, and sealed it so no one would find it, he says, until the Lord show mercy to Israel. And there it is. So that's coming very soon. Shall be builded upon her own heap, and the palace shall remain after the manner thereof. And out of them shall proceed thanksgiving and the voice of them that make merry. Oh, yeah. And I will multiply them, and they shall not be few, and I will also glorify them. Arise, shine, your light is come, the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. That's like Moses with the veil on his face. And they shall not be small. Small means like insignificant, you know. Their children also shall be as aforetime. Shall be as aforetime, and their congregation shall be established before me, and I will punish all that oppress them. Well, that's got to include Iran. And I will punish all that oppress them. And their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governors shall proceed from the midst of them. Well, the two witnesses would be the judges, that would be the more suitable term. Shall proceed from the midst of them, and I will cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me. Unto me, for who is this that engaged his heart to approach unto me, saith the Lord, the two witnesses. And you shall be my people, and I will be your God. Behold, the whirlwind of Jehovah goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked. The fierce anger of Jehovah shall not return until he have done it, and until he have performed the intents of his heart. In the latter days you shall consider it. We're in the latter days. And in Isaiah 1, we need to see that, well, why did I get in Isaiah 2? I want 1. We're going to see about the judges. It shows you what happens here. We'll pick it up in Isaiah 124. Therefore saith Adonai Jehovah of armies, the mighty one of Israel. He doesn't say the mighty one of the church, does he? And that's because if you're in Yeshua HaMashiach, you're in Israel. He's the King of Israel. You have his Holy Spirit. He refers to you as his brethren. Satan makes a mockery of you when he says, oh, we're the church, we're not Israel, we stand next to Israel. That's sending you to the lake of fire. All Israel shall be saved, Romans 11. Therefore saith the Lord unto the Lord of hosts, the mighty one of Israel, I will ease me of my adversaries and avenge me of my enemies. Is that not including Iran, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, PIJ, and America? Of course it does. And I will turn my hand upon thee, and surely purge away thy dross, and take away all thy tin. And I will restore thy judges as at the first. What was that at the first? What? Moses and Aaron were judges. There were also prophets. It says that. And that's the first. And those are the two witnesses. They're going to function as judges. God doesn't use democracies. And, they tried with the kings. How did King Saul work out? God wasn't too pleased with that one. And as at the first, and thy counselors as at the beginning. The 70 counselors Moses and Aaron had, same thing again. Afterward thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. Zion shall be redeemed with judgment. He's going to get rid of the bad ones. And her converts with righteousness. And the destruction of the transgressors and of the sinners shall be together. Okay? And so the transgressors is Pesha. Those are rebels. Apostates, maybe. The transgressors and of the sinners. And the sinners is Kata. I think these are the foreign people that surround Jerusalem. It's rooted to the guilty, a criminal, that kind of thing. And they that forsake the Lord shall be consumed. That's burned up. For they shall be ashamed of the oaks which you have desired, and you shall be confounded for the gardens that you have chosen. For you shall be as an oak whose leaf fadeth, and as a garden that hath no water. And the strong shall be as tow, and the maker of it as a spark, and they shall both burn together, and none shall quench them. There's going to be a lot of burning. They're going to be ashes under the soles of your feet. So you're going to, you should read Mark 13, Luke 21, Matthew 24, and also read Jeremiah 30. And then you'll really understand, and then add in Zechariah 12, Isaiah 1, John 6:40, and you're on your way. That's the reality of it. Okay, let me see what's cooking in the chat. And if I got to do anything, I do answer questions in the chat. I'm just trying to see if I got any questions to deal with here. No. Okay, so I think I covered what I needed to cover today. Let me check my notes. I think I got everything. I did. And Moshe, please pray for me and my wife for our peace, safety, protection, joy, healing of our bodies. Pray for our finances. Pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for the one dog, Beulah, that she stopped jumping over the fence, please. We're at wit's end. We've been repairing and fixing things so she can't get out, and she keeps finding ways out. Unbelievable. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem and pray for better videos. Please hit the like button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. Now, this is important. If you guys like to get the news from Israel when the eggs start hitting the fan, and they do, I do emergency or all of a sudden YouTube live streams explaining to you what happened, like we got attacked or we attacked this or this war broke out, you know. So if you're interested in things like that from Israel, you're going to get it about 12 hours earlier than you will. From me, you'll get it about 12 hours earlier than mainstream news starts putting it out. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you get the notifications when I come on live, okay? If you're interested. But please hit the like button anyway. Thanks for those that are giving the offerings. The PayPal is the best for me. And I hope you got something out of it. And I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach and Father God Yehovah. And I really hope you got something out of this. I try. And let's see how long it was. Yeah, 2.5 hours-ish. Okay, kids, I'm out. Thank you.